Joining us now is Cletus Obun, a former lawmaker and member of the APC Presidential Campaign Council and former state chairman of HCN Cross River State. Very warm welcome to Newsnight, Cletus. And I will believe that Cross River is one of the biggest battlegrounds in the South-South. How is APC going to triumph, being one of the first elections or so that the APC will be testing?
Well, I want to thank you first for bringing me on at this point and on this program. But let me say that it's not the first. Since 2015, we've been on the ballot, and 2019 we were on the ballot. Just that for the first time since 1999, we are having an APC governor who, when he discovered that the umbrella was collapsing and the rain was coming in too easily, had to come out here to the broom for security. Having said that, I would say that APC is good to go. The result of the last election is sufficient to show and to indicate that APC is on a 90 to 10 chance to win. 90 to 10 because we have three out of the 3 senators, APC has 2, and out of the 8 members of the Federal House, APC has 5. So that statistic tells the theory. And what should interest you more is that the bulk of the votes and the strength, it shows you the axis of strength in Cross River State. Cross River South, with 7 local governments, and Cross River Central with 6 local governments, dominated. Indeed, in the Central, every seat that was available, including the presidential election, was won by APC in Cross River State.
And the North couldn't deliver. The North couldn't deliver the state governor for his senatorial seat.
This is what I'm saying, that is the axis of weakness, and where we are going to make it up, given that that was a big lesson, because treachery and intra-party, I should always warn that intra-party crises are more difficult to resolve than inter-party crisis.
Well, that's actually my next question, because you've identified one weakness which you say your party is working on. But there are those who say one of the biggest hurdles for your party to face in Saturday's poll will be the internal wranglings. I mean, there have been court cases, there have been faction in Akwa Ibom, so when it comes to the APC. How are you working to resolve that? And do you think it will hurt your party's chances in the election? You are dealing with Cross River, please, not Akwa Ibom. Oh, beg your pardon. So sorry about
Cross River, yeah.
Yes, and Cross River has been known to be a land of peace. Yeah. The only ruffling shed feathers we have is the committal and the intermittent interjection of the former governor, who appears to be both an umpire, an elder, a referee, and a player. This is one of the problems.
Who is this former governor now?
Former Governor Donald Duke. You heard him recently saying, as a PDP member, saying he's endorsing a PDP candidate. I don't know what that means and what it amounts to. But essentially, APC matters in terms of crisis have all been resolved. What we just had was the aftermath of the primaries, which of course you should know. The bitterness of primaries is worse than electoral defeat. And so most of the time what you saw happening in the North was an error, a miscalculation, and undermining of critical electoral matters that took place in the North. And the governor, even though it's a casualty, you can see clearly that he has taken him in his strides and has come out fully to support the
So, Cletus, you're very confident that Cross Riverians will still, or rather, your party, the APC, will be building on the Olympo holistically developed state, as Governor Yade would always put it, you know, particularly during his budget period. I put that in parentheses.
Yeah, let me say this.
It's not my grammar.
Yes, each time you put Ayade on the ballot or put him as a predecessor or as an outgoing governor, one of the things you must grant him, which APC is going to build upon, is that he has charted a path for any success, whether it is PDP or APC. Any successive government that is going to come to Kola must build on the agro-industrialization, which is one of the biggest statements he has made in Cross River State that people are trying to undermine. You cannot, for example, we can't be producing cocoa and we can't produce chocolate. We can't be producing rice and looking for where to go and mill it in Abakaliki. You can't imagine that people are traveling from Obaliku, from Yala, 10, 30, 50, 70, 120 kilometers to go and just mill a bag of rice. So what is done is bringing that, which is about 8,000 per hour capacity rice mill, and in Ogoja, then the groundnuts that are being produced from Obudu, Obaliko, Bekwara is having a groundnut oil producing mill in Bekwara local government at Abochiche. And then, of course, you come to the cassava processing plant. If you remember our economic history, you will discover that these industries were cottage industries that Kizito Atta had initiated in between 1987 and 1990. And they were all abandoned. What he's doing is to resuscitate them. And, of course, the Michael Okpara Palm Estate, which kept 63% of Nigeria's GDP as at 1963, you will discover that up to 60% of Nigeria's GDP was from agriculture, and that was from the oil palm estates established by. Okay. So what the Ayade has done is to bring them up. What we need is a consolidation, because government is a continuum, and I think building on that. But the other phantom things that were done before this time, which were left out because definitely they are not sustainable, were things like Tinapa, the monorail.
Sorry, just before you call it. How about the super highway? Unsustainable.
No, super highway first. In the first day, when it was discovered that within this period it was no longer fashionable and no longer sustainable and was not economically viable, it was abandoned. There was no, I mean, it's not a disgraceful
with all the money spent for design, for compensations, for the clearing of, the forest.
This is what I'm saying. It is better for you to do a cost-benefit analysis and cut your losses than to proceed in error, knowing very well that you have made an error. The greatest asset of a man is his ability and courage to accept when he makes an error. And that was why that project was stopped. So clearly, I do imagine that whatever has happened to Superhighway, for example, after a careful restudy of it, for example, what studied were the litigations about the environmental impact assessment, the EIA. So that already kept a lot of litigations on, and then going on litigation alone, a lot of money was going to be wasted, and the government decided at that point to stop it. Remember that it was the first state and the first project that Buhari, as a president in 2015, visited, even though it was an opposition state.
Indeed. And that brings me to the question of the political landscape in Cross River changing very quickly. A state that has been dominated by the PDP in previous elections went the way of the Labour Party this time around in the presidential election. So it's no longer the usual two-horse race that we know it to be. Are you also considering, or are you, dismissing the power of the opposition here, the Labour Party, and of course the PDP, just because your governor, is an APC governor?
No. I'm one of the very realistic person. I have stayed in opposition for 22 years. I faced all of them talking today as PDP, Labour, and all that. I have been state chairman. You saw that it's not a fluke. So I know this terrain well. I will not tell you, and I have made this point even to my party members, that with the beavers and with the political environment and the demographics that have come out, the era of saying we have 200,000 can no longer be, and therefore we are going to face a 50-50 chance in order to put everybody on his toes. The candidate of the PDP is not a walkover. You cannot take and dismiss him. The candidate of Labour Party came on the wave of what we might call the mob action. It was a mob action. Clearly, yes, I can tell. For instance, how do you win? They won a state.
That's a revolution, not a mob action.
Let me give you, you couldn't have been winning a state in numbers and not get one National Assembly seat. It doesn't work. It doesn't tell you it's an organized and structured, deliberate action of any group. It's a mob action. Otherwise, it should be directed at producers. You couldn't have done that after that winning. You should expect a senator, 2-3 federal house members.
You may call it a mob action, which will find very uncharitable.
We are going to see the results on Saturday. As we speak now, they are even already adopting, and of course, here the national, their presidential candidate, telling you that he's adopting a PDP candidate. What does that tell you?
See, the party is now put to alliances as well.
No, that's not an alliance. They have a candidate.
Lawmaker, a member of the APC, that's the All Progressives Congress Presidential Campaign Council. He's also the former state chairman of the ACN in Cross River State. Thank you so much for joining us on the news tonight.
Thanks for having us so briefly.